And it says Adventure Smart.
Hey, welcome to Caching in the Northwest. You know this is the official podcast of GeoWoodstock 18 right here in the great Pacific Northwest. Now, it's Thursday at 9 p.m., and I'm Chris of the Northwest, and we're going to talk about geocaches and geocachers from here and all around the globe. So while you're wondering what to do with those hundreds of reusable shopping bags, we'll be caching in the Northwest.
Aren't all shopping bags reusable on some level?
At some level.
Yeah. Anyway, whether that is true or not, it is 9 p.m. Thursday. I'm Wits End, and tonight we're talking with KevMacD about challenge caches. Glad you're here, Kev.
Thank you.
And of course,
Chris, Monkey.
Of course, live chat. We want to hear from alls of yous, twos, Thursdays. I don't know. Anyway, but first, of course, it's time to bring in our challenging chimpanzee. Some say he sleeps in a race car bed. Others say he spent his day looking for his sneakers in the fridge. All we know is he's called Land Monkey.
It's surprising how much of your day you can spend looking for things in the fridge.
He was living
you have
in
cool
the fridge.
shoes.
Thanks,
Oh,
someone's on his
All
game.
right. I can just sign off now. You guys got this.
Good to be here. Always enjoy a Thursday night conversation with my friends and, of course, with all of our live viewers. We see all kinds of great comments already, and welcome to everybody who's in the chat there. We're looking forward to hearing from you as we talk about challenge caches with KevMacD tonight. But before we get into any and all of that, of course, a quick reminder that we appreciate the support of our patrons who help to keep this podcast coming each and every week, thanks to Land Sharks, one of our corporate denial level sponsors. And hey, guys, I got a special message from Helen today.
Ooh,
how special am I?
Message you had to decode?
Yeah.
Your decoder ring?
I had to have my Land Sharks decoder ring, so
All right.
I used that. And here's what I decrypted here.
Top secret scoop. Here we go.
Yeah, it says we're in Southern California. Wait, what? Yeah. And they're going to be checking out the Landsat Geo Tour. I'm not sure what that is. I have to look into that. So Helen says, watch our social media over the next few days as we post about our adventures. Follow us at Go Land Sharks on Instagram and at Land Sharks on Twitter and Facebook. So there you go. And hey, if you want to know more about Land Sharks, then the products and the tours and everything, check it all out at landsharkswiththez.ca. And let's not forget about our other corporate denial level sponsor. Well, that's Gold Country Geotourism. Visit exploregoldcountry.com to learn about the Geotour, the region, and how to explore it safely and have fun while you're doing it. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/exploregoldcountry, and it is, as I said, on the webs, exploregoldcountry.com. And folks, if you want to know more about supporting this this here podcast that is very much in the moment.
It is so here. It is very here.
It's so very here.
Why don't you click that Patreon link on the cachingnw.com, a website.
Yes. Now, is it ironic or inevitable that the land sharks are looking for Landsats? GSM times 2 says, that's awesome. I helped put that geo tour together. Welcome to Lompoc.
Lompoc.
Lompo, is that how it's pronounced?
Lompoc.
If you say Lompoc, it sounds like it's an evil space alien.
Okay.
And just in case you wanted to know, Cash the Line says it's midnight. I'm in your future. I saw challenge and I couldn't resist popping in.
Awesome. Well, Good to have you here, Cash. the
Yeah,
Line.
it's nice to know the world will last at least another 3 hours.
That's right. After that, we have no idea.
We have no idea.
Hey, I do have an idea of what we're going to do next, and it's called the Glow. That's the
What's-
geocaching log of the week. I
Yeah.
didn't ask this week.
He didn't ask. I tried to ask. He wouldn't let me ask.
What is the Glow, you may ask?
Not now. I'm not going to ask.
Oh,
What is the glow, Chris?
Kev, I like you. Thank you for coming on tonight.
You're welcome.
Can we keep him? He's like a puppy we found. Can we just keep him?
Did he follow
Hey.
you home?
I hope not, because that would just be creepy.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Okay.
Hey,
The Glow is the geocaching log of the week. So whether you read it or whether you wrote it, we want to hear about it because great logs simply make geocaching better. You can send an email or a recording to feedback@cachingandw.com. You can also call into 253-693-TFTC and show us how you glow.
It's not quite the same without watching Glenn Monkey mock you as you say it. If you're listening to the audio podcast, you missed that. But, you know, it's always a chance to go back to it. Anyway, this week's Glow, I didn't even realize there was one. I scrolled down earlier and there was nothing's there. So let's go check out what Sprouter found. That would be puzzles, mazes, and trickery. It's GC1 Bravo Papa 19. He says, where do I start with this cache? I suppose from the beginning. Wait, I don't remember the beginning because I solved the cache page puzzle some years ago. So, while out grabbing caches on this trail, I decided to see what the solved puzzle icon was all about, not knowing what was in store for me. Well, I get to the solved coordinates and quickly find the container. I open the container and was immediately flummoxed. I've seen these things before, but never actually figured them out. So after 5 minutes or so, I broke out the camera phone and used Google Lens to figure out what this was and then how it might be solved. It might be cheating, but I use the tools I have with me. He says, I got the required information and I headed to the next waypoint. Didn't really expect more waypoints, but that's what happens when you don't pre-read the cache page. Once I was at the second waypoint, I soon found the container and opened it up. This was something I had seen before, but it still took some time to get the info I needed. I finally got that info, and I head to the third waypoint. Get to ground zero and start looking and continue looking for something like 10 minutes. Frustrated, I circled the area again and was relieved to finally find the container. I opened it up, headed back to the trail to do the work required. After another 10 minutes, I finally cracked the puzzle, which gave me the last bit of information I needed for the final leg. Off I went to the final location, and once at that ground zero, I put everything I had gathered together and finally received the treasure I was looking for, the log book. I inked my name, put the cache back, got back on the trail, and reveled in the task that was just accomplished. Wow, what a cache. What I thought would be 5 minutes down the trail to get the solved cache from the cache page turned out to be an hour-long adventure with twists, turns, and pitfalls. Was it worth it? Absolutely. Would I do it again? Heck yeah. Will it get a favorite point? Most definitely. I could probably continue on for another paragraph or so, but I'll finish here. Sign the log. Thanks for the hide.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Way to go, Sprouter.
There must have been some trickery involved.
Indeed. So I assume this is Sprouter's log.
Yes.
Yeah,
Very
it's
cool.
a Sprouter. Yeah, Sprouter found that one.
Very cool. Well, congratulations, Sprouter. That sounds like quite the adventure, and really appreciate you sending in the glow.
Yes. And just before the show, I was working on, well, perhaps you see it right here, the new 2022 glow log. I know Wits End, you're so surprised.
I am. Yeah. How did that happen?
Working on the smaller version to put out, to be able to hand out for, well, glows in 2022.
Very cool.
Isn't it lovely?
So everyone who has had a glow red on the show can expect to get one in the not too distant future.
Exactly. All 3 weeks of shows.
At least sometime in
weeks of shows.
2022, it should show up.
Yeah, there you go. You got a year, Chris. You should be good.
Whew.
Take a little
No,
pressure.
actually, Wits End had it ready. Did you have it ready a week or more ago?
I don't remember.
You were on the ball this year.
I barely remember what I did this morning. So
I think he's been using it all since the new year started, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
here, I'll
Slick.
throw it in there again.
Whoa,
There you go.
look at that.
Oh,
Careful,
That
I'm gonna
nearly
you in the
hit me.
face.
Well, you'll put somebody's eye out.
gotta get those 3D glasses.
Keep trying.
There you
Oh,
go.
maybe we should do the podcast in 3D.
It's like the credits
That
at
means
the
we
end of
move really close.
the credits at the end of an animated film. Yeah.
3D, but no scratch and smell, please.
Okay.
No, we covered that earlier.
3D reminds me of my report card.
Mm.
Well, speaking of exceptional marks, how about that hashtag mark? If you
Ooh.
want
Yeah,
to,
that's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah,
Oh, if you want to add to tonight's chat and maybe challenge the Challenge Cache King, as we're calling KevMacD tonight, just because we've got to give him some name. The Challenge Cache King, use the hashtag challenge there in the chat. And of course, you can use the hashtag FATAS to bring something up in the after show.
the after show.
I've heard of that.
All right, absolutely. Yeah. So I don't think we've got any news today. I mean, the summit souvenir stuff's going on, and we've talked about all the other souvenirs that are coming up this year. So it'll be souvenir year, all kinds of crazy
The
things.
year of the souvenir.
The year of the souvenirs.
It's the souvenir.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and we've covered off the GeoWoodstock in the previous episode. So
The Gigastock.
GeoStock Canada. Yeah. So I think we're all cut up in our news. So I don't think we need
You still doing that? The
What's that?
Gigastock?
Oh yeah.
Okay, just checking.
Oh yeah. That's
That's
happening, man.
Okay.
It's on.
August 13th, Abbotsford, BC.
Oh, like this year. We can say this year.
This year. Party
year.
on, Garth.
Mhm.
Not going to do it.
I was waiting. All right, well, tell you what. Why don't we just get to our guest? Because he's so patiently waiting there and putting up with all of our abuse. So I know we've already been chatting with you, Kev, but welcome officially back to the podcast. And thanks, by the way, for supporting us as a patron.
And thank you all. It's good to see all of you again.
It's been ages since I've seen you.
So-
At least a week.
At least
I haven't seen him in person since last year.
That's
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, no, you were in Victoria. Oh, that was
Last
last
year.
year. Yeah, there you
That
go.
was last year, yeah.
Yeah.
You made me scratch my head there. I was like, did we see him last year? Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was last year.
And I was going, wait a minute. Okay, last month, but last year.
Yeah.
It's so
I don't remember.
confusing.
I don't remember the exact date, but that was barely a month ago.
Yes. The 18th?
Was it the 18th, 15th?
Or the
Something
20th.
like that.
The 18th,
Yeah.
something like that.
And you were a very snazzy dresser at the time. Now,
Well, I dressed up for Christmas.
yes, you did. So, Kev, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit, not only about your wardrobe choices, but perhaps where is home? What do you enjoy most about geocaching?
Well, let's start with the fashion choices. I like to have a little bit of fun. So I have a Christmas suit. We had an event recently that was all about Hat Day, and I wore my Flying Spaghetti Monster hat to that.
Thanks to Dora Moore.
Thanks to Dora Moore. Yeah, there was a trade that went on there. She had an event, and I made some medals for her event, and she crocheted a Flying Spaghetti Monster hat for me. So, working within the geocaching community. And I'm part of the Star Wars clubs that do charity work as well. So I have a number of Star Wars outfits as well. I'm based in Burnaby, BC. I've been caching since 2011. And although I don't call myself the Challenge King, I do think of myself as enjoying some of the less enjoyed cache types out there. So challenge caches, multis, mysteries, a lot of the cache types where maybe newer cachers steer away from them. And frankly, even a lot of experienced cachers will turn away from multis and mysteries and things like that. And I really enjoy those cache types.
It's fun to do the different types. I'm interested in multiple Star Wars costumes. We may have to revisit that later. I think I could pull off the Han Solo Carbonite costume, but I don't think I could pull off the Princess Leia bikini costume. But we're just going to jump right in and talk with you about challenge caching. So can you break down exactly, for those of us ignorant types, what exactly a challenge cache is? What does challenge caching mean?
What does challenge caching mean? Well, it's almost like a field puzzle. We all cache differently, and many geocachers are looking for fun and simple ways to challenge themselves to their geocaching goals. We have a number of built-in challenges into the game. So log a cache for every day of the year, which includes leap day. Cache for each difficulty and terrain rating, known as the fizzy. And of course, we have Jasmer, which is finding a cache for every cache place since the month of May 2000. So those are kind of built into the system. There's probably a few others. But challenge caches allows cache owners to challenge other cachers to caching goals. That might be finding a cache a day for a short period of time, or finding certain types of caches.
Very cool. Very cool. On the topic of challenge caches, one of the challenges Mrs. Monkey and I are working on is filling the calendar with different size caches. And I know we'll get into a whole lot of that kind of stuff, but I just got to shout out congrats to Mrs. Monkey, because today, before the podcast, we went out and we found the last micro we need to fill 365 days of micros. So,
wow,
that was fun to achieve that.
Nice.
But so we're talking about challenge caching and the types of some of the different built-in challenges, Kev. But what exactly is a challenge cache? What's the definition of a challenge cache?
It's a mystery or an unknown cache type placed at the posted coordinates or with a visible final waypoint, and it must have the English word challenge in the title. It also must have the challenge cache attribute set on it. This means that you can find the cache anytime that you like and sign the log, but you can't log it on geocaching.com until you meet the challenge. The challenge might be streaking, and not the kind sans close like the land monkey is rumored to be a fan of, but finding a cache a day for a week, or finding a cache a day for a month, or even a year. It can come from any of the statistics that come from geocaching.com. Well, not any of them. There are actually some restrictions, but the challenges must come from what's available on geocaching.com. And it can include any of the positive statistics that are there. So they don't allow DNF challenges, because that's really a negative statistic. And so it has to be a positive statistic. So you won't find a DNF challenge out there.
Sounded like there was a few must things that you went through there. And I know Keats had a question. Yeah. Are there baseline rules for placing challenge caches? Is that something you're going to get into in more depth later in the show, Kevin? Or is that relevant?
I have a link in the notes there if you want to jump forward, but we will get to that where you look it up. The base is it has all the same rules as a traditional, because there is a physical placement of a cache. So you have all the proximity issues, you have all of the land use issues, all of the other restrictions to placing a traditional. But additionally, you have to define the challenge that the cacher has to meet, and you have to come up with a challenge checker, an online challenge checker that allows you to go in there and determine whether you qualify for it or not.
Nice.
There are a bunch of other restrictions. But yeah.
Can this be any challenge checker? I make one up and put it on my website and say, here, if you can, complete this challenge and, by my standards, then you're good to go.
Well, that's an interesting question, Chris. When you read it, it doesn't specify that you must use projectgc.com, but I think everyone right now is using projectgc.com. So if you're not familiar with Project GC, it is a partnership with geocaching.com. It has access to all of essentially the database of geocaching.com. So it has all your logs in it. Plus, they have a full system for creating challenge checkers, where you can say, okay, you must find 10 traditional, you must find 20 mystery caches, however it's defined. And it allows you to go into Project GC and run the challenge checker to see if you qualify for the challenge. Mm-hmm. So that's a fairly classic, I believe, challenge where you say finding a certain number of a cache type. And Land Monkey was just talking about finding micros for every day of the year. Is that the one that you're talking about? Yeah. And of course, that's across years. So it's not a micro for every day for a year straight, but every day of the year for all of the years that you've been caching. That would be a very classic challenge.
Now, I've heard, and I don't know if it's true or not, that you can only place a challenge that you qualify for.
Absolutely. One of the things, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about how we got here. But
am I jumping ahead?
It's fine. Hey,
I do that a lot.
Right? Let's just go with it. The deep, dark past of challenge caching is that it became a challenge to challenge everybody. And some of the challenges that were getting published were frankly ridiculous. And the cache owner didn't even qualify for them. So one of the changes that they made was, let's be saying the cache owner must qualify for it. Additionally, they must show that cachers in that region, some of them at least, also qualify.
No? Oh, okay.
So the reviewers will ask you for a list of other local cachers that already qualify for your challenge.
Interesting.
That gets rid of the must log the cache on the space station challenge. That's
right.
That could be interesting.
So, Chris, I'm going to jump in here and grab the question you had because I think we've skipped around a little bit. But so if we recall in the Wayback Machine here, fire it up. A few years back, there was a moratorium on challenge caches. Yes. So a few years back, a moratorium on challenge caches from HQ. And then literally they said, you can't publish a challenge cache for a period of time while they reworked the rules. And now there's more guidelines. Kev, you were sharing earlier some of the musts that need to be done. But maybe you can sort of walk us through the history of how did we get from where we were with challenge caches to where we are today?
Well, yeah, sure. That's a great question. What was the problem? And again, I mentioned that it was a challenge of challenges, and cache owners were trying to just create ridiculous challenges so they could almost say, I have the most challenging cache out there. So they sat down, they took 2 years, they formed this partnership with Project GC. And but the things they were having were, it was simply impossible for most cachers to ever qualify for many, many challenges. And that's very discouraging for a lot of cachers. And it's discouraging for the cache type as well, right? You look at a few of those and you go, I have to log the cache on the space station, and I have to log every cache in British Columbia. And they just said, okay, I'm not ever going to look at challenge caches again. But there was another more subtle side effect, which is it became so complicated so complicated to verify whether the cacher qualified for the challenge that many owners didn't bother. So you could literally log a challenge cache and just hope that the cache owner was too bored to bother to verify whether you qualified. And the flip side to that, of course, is that more honest cachers, if I can go in that direction, could spend hours and hours and hours going through their statistics, trying to figure out if they qualify for these caches. And that was also a very unfriendly way of caching. So I think when HQ put the moratorium, which we've decided to call it on, was, can we create some simple and fun challenge cache rules that were easy to verify? And I think that was the goal. And I think they've pretty much done that. Although there's still some pretty challenging caches out there. We were talking the other day about webcam caches. Now, I'm not going to name any names, but there are not very many webcam. Oh, what are you laughing about, Land Monkey? No. But
I think webcams are hilarious.
Webcams are hilarious, but for the average cacher, it's a challenge, and it's a great challenge, I think, to log, was it 10 webcam caches? And there's only one in British Columbia. It's on Vancouver Island. I believe there's a number in Washington State, but I believe you actually have to go down as far as Oregon if you want to meet that challenge. So, not an easy challenge, but easy to verify. And definitely for people who've got quite a number of caches and who travel around a bit, it's very, very achievable.
Well, and for a challenge like that, you don't even need to have a lot of caches in your find history. Those are the kind that are really encouraging the travel part of the game.
Yes. Although I think, when you look at logs, and this is maybe my unverified opinion, but people without a lot of finds don't have a lot of webcams. Because people with smaller number of finds, they're going to tend to focus on traditionals and then the easy puzzles and the easy multis, and of course now adventure labs. So I think before people start to look and say, hey, how do I get 10 webcams? They've probably got a significant number of finds in their bucket.
Fair enough.
Before we keep going, as I know Jim, you had a question next, but I just want to shout out that we are without the chat lackey tonight. So if we're not getting to your question in the chat right away, we apologize in advance. We are trying to keep up with the chat while we also engage with Kev on this really interesting topic. So we are going to try and get your questions. We may have to kind of go through them all at the end of the show, but we are seeing some great comments and questions coming in. We really appreciate it. We will get to you, but just ask for your patience because we're a little shorthanded tonight.
Yeah, and as
I'm here all night.
We love the chat. We try to see. We do see quite a few, even if we don't get them on. But what I also love is how interactive the chat is with each other.
Yes,
I see questions come up, and another chat person will answer it, and it's great. It's a good discussion. It's not just with us. So it's just a whole community here, and we appreciate that.
There you go.
You guys rock. So you've mentioned a few of the guidelines, rules, etc. Any more specifics about guidelines that you want to bring up and talk about there?
Sure, I can talk a little bit about some of the things that they've taken away. One of the things that used to be very popular was an alphabet challenge. So find a cache whose name starts with the letter A, the letter B, the letter C, all the way through the alphabet. Those have been taken away. Cache owner names, GC codes, listing text, so the text that you find on the cache page, none of these things are includable in a challenge. And I think that's because they do change so often, and then it becomes an impossible time to try and figure these out. No time limited challenge, so no 50 caches in a day, and the only exception that is one a day if you are streaking. Again, we're trying to make it really popular for those people that might just go find one or two caches every once in a while. You cannot say, 50 caches in a day, 50 caches in a week, that kind of thing. The streaking challenge is limited to 365 days. So that's the longest streak that you can create. Everything that's involved in lab caches, so the adventure labs, the old lab caches, waymarking, benchmarking, they're not included. They are specifically excluded. They are not actually in the geocaching.com database. So according to the rule, it says they must be part of the geocaching.com database. They are being excluded, and no trackable logs. Now, I did reach out to the local volunteer reviewers, the ones here in British Columbia, and they came back with a couple of notes. There should not be a long list of rules, and this is in the guidelines. Simple and fun. Okay, so if it's going to take you 15 minutes to describe how your challenge works, probably doesn't work. And if you will be probably requested to provide a list of at least 10 localish cachers that qualify for your challenge, so they're to make it much more accessible.
So it sounds like the guidelines that came in post-moratorium when challenge caches were allowed again are really kind of set to make challenge caching more accessible to all geocachers and to try and avoid it becoming maybe a bit more of an elitist part of the game, or as you were talking about, Kevin, like the one-upmanship. I mean, you can still do some of the one-upmanship for sure and stay within the guidelines, but I mean, if 10 people in your region need to qualify, then it has its pluses and its minuses. I know one of our most experienced cachers in our region here. Did a lot of work to get a new challenge trail out recently, which was awesome. But one of her complaints
even at minus 14 degrees Celsius. Yes.
I know, like hardy. But one of her complaints was, I qualify for all of these. And you might think, well, what are you complaining about? You can log them all. But her complaint was, I'm kind of looking for things to work towards. So,
yeah.
So it's an interesting.
Yeah, and I think I know who you're talking about for sure. But one of those cachers that has so many finds, there's probably only 4 or 5 people in the province that actually have that many finds, right?
Yeah.
So that's where you have to create your own challenges, and we all do. I'm
Right.
a first to find hound. First to find cannot be a challenge because it's not a stat in geocaching.com, but it's a challenge I create for myself, right? And that's what this is supposed to represent.
For sure. So given all of that, if I want to find a tool that's going to help me with the challenge caches, and I think we talked about this a little bit before, but maybe this is the opportunity to dig into it. Where do I start?
So a tool for what? To help you find challenge caches and
to help me find the challenge caches and to help me understand if I qualify for them.
Oh, excellent. So there's 2. Well, it all comes from Project GC. There's one overall tool, and there's 2 parts to that tool that are useful. Every challenge cache published since the moratorium, I believe, has a Project GC challenge checker at the bottom. Okay, we're going to talk about that in a sec. Let me jump backwards a little bit. Project GC also has a challenge map. Okay, and I believe it's it's part of the paid membership for Project GC, so it's not available to everybody. But if you are a Project GC member, you can open up that map, and I believe once a week or so, it finds all the challenge caches in your area and runs the checker for you and shows you a map of all of the ones that you qualify for. Which is kind of an interesting feature. So if you're going to go
Isn't that cool?
It's very cool. Yeah, you can create like a day trip or you can go on a geocaching road trip that's all challenge caches that you've qualified for. Now let's jump back to the challenge checker. I'm going to put one up here in a minute, but I want to talk about a couple of the features first, and then I'll show you those features. The challenge checker will run for any user. So it kind of defaults to you when you bring it up, and you can say, hey, do I qualify or not? And it will say yes or no. But you can actually run it for any user. So I can run it for Chris or Jim or Land Monkey, whoever, and see if they qualify as well. And this is really nice for the challenge checker owner who sees a log on their challenge cache, and they can go, hey, does Wits End actually qualify for this challenge, and run it. And it will say yes, or no, or whatever. So I was talking about those problems that were happening before where, it was tough for you to tell if you qualified. It was also tough for the challenge owner to tell if you to verify whether you qualify. So the challenge checker can be run for multiple users. The other part is if you don't qualify, most of the challenge checkers will tell you what you need to finish the challenge. So for example, if the challenge is something simple like find 10 traditionals and you only found 5, it'll say go out and find 5 more traditionals, and then you will qualify. That's a simple example.
Yeah.
But maybe I can open it up here and show you one. Would that be all right?
Awesome. Yeah.
That'd be lovely.
All right.
Let
So
me see if I can figure out how to share
the
that.
audio, you may want to actually skip ahead to whatever time we are in the podcast.
Well, I will try and talk our way through it. There's a screen there, Chris.
But I mean, it's super valuable for people if they are listening to this. We're at 34 minutes, so there you go. So head on over to YouTube later and jump to 34 minutes if you're listening to the audio. Keep listening, but if you want to see what Kevin's showing us, it's at the 34-minute mark.
Now I have to find the window that I opened. Okay, there we go. Now you can see me move this window, can you?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a challenge. It's published by one of our locals, Kat Kogo, the former president of the BCGAA, and it's a Sherlock Holmes challenge. I won't go through the whole what you have to do to qualify, but down here at the bottom, this is the Project GC challenge checker. This is a standard feature now of every challenge cache, is to be able to have this challenge checker. Just clicked on it. Hopefully it's going to open up here. It's brought me over to Project GC. This is not a paid function. Everyone can access this. You can see it defaults to me, KevMacD. I can run the checker, and it says, hey, I fulfill the challenge. Hey, that's pretty cool. Now, but I can run it for other people, and I'm going to pick Wits End just because it's likely you haven't been up here to do this challenge.
I was going to say it's likely. Yeah. Nope.
Yeah, no, you don't fulfill the challenge.
Wah,
wah.
Okay.
Well, wah, wah. So very, very simple to use and simple to use for other cachers. And this is find 750 mystery caches. Okay, so this is very doable, I think, for people with a few thousand finds. Anywhere.
Okay.
Anywhere.
And not
anytime.
just in Canada, but anywhere in the globe. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, it says for Canada, so it could be that it's restricted to Canada. Now, I do have another example here. Let me see if I can figure out where I'm at.
Well, you're on the podcast with us.
I'm on the podcast. Somebody tell a joke while I try and figure out.
I was going to say, while you're looking there, I'm going to say that this checker is really, really helpful, because recently on that trip where I saw you in Victoria, we went out during the day and there was a cache. I don't remember the number, but it had to do with the element, the table of elements. And you had to find caches. I want to say it was like 100. Does that sound right? Am I exaggerating that?
That sounds right. Yeah, a certain
had,
number.
HE for helium and H whatever, all the different elements in the GC codes. And I thought, good grief, that would take me forever to figure out if I qualified or not. But we were out with Ari 54321, and he just, while Chris was driving around, Ari was just punching names in. He goes, "Yep, we all qualify." And there was another one nearby that I didn't qualify for. And today I learned I could have logged that, signed the log and just not logged it online yet. I just didn't bother signing the log because I said, well, I don't qualify. I'm not even going to go there. But I learned something today.
That's an interesting. Sign it anytime.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. And yes, within the rules of the game, you can definitely do that. Mrs. Monkey and I have a thing where we don't like to go and actually sign the log of a challenge cache until we qualify for it, because we want to log it online when we find it. So,
and I didn't sign it, so I would fit in with your
You
rules.
didn't sign it.
But that's a personal preference of playing the game, right? So
I'm a little bit lost in Windows. Well, I'm trying to show you, and I can't find the window. That's the problem. Oh, here we go. Okay. Too many windows open. What I want to do for this challenge is I want to run it again for me and show you that I do not qualify for this cache, but I want to show you the advice that it's giving me. So this is one where you have to find a challenge cache. Oh, sorry, not a challenge cache. I believe that this is one where you have to find a multi every day for a month. And it's not a streak, so it can be any day, across the years to fill a month. But you can see that I haven't done that anywhere. There's a lot of red here.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to meet this challenge, I could find a month where I had a bunch of them logged, and then I could start to say, okay, I need to log a multi on the 2nd month. I need to log one on the 5th and the 6th and the 7th. So this is a challenge I'm a long way from qualifying for, a month of challenges. But again, I wanted to show the advice that it's giving you. There's a nice table here. I can print it out. I can take it along. There's all sorts of things I can do with it and start planning a geocaching road trip in my area to try and qualify for this. So this is kind of a standard feature of most of the challenge checkers. It'll tell you what you need to fill in.
Yeah, it's really nice.
very cool.
Kevin,
This is
you
definitely one I'm
apparently don't
feeling.
like the 11th day of the month because you've never found a multi-cache on that day.
Yeah, that's
Or
interesting,
challenge
isn't
cache
it?
on that day.
Wow.
That is interesting.
There's a few
The
other
only
days,
day.
right?
It's the only day of the month that you've not found one throughout the whole year.
That pattern really stands out. That's funny.
It is, yeah. I often go to the HAG event on Vancouver Island, the Hide and Go event, and there's typically multis that appear on that, but I find them all in one day. So what this doesn't show is how many multis I have found. It only shows the days that I found them on, right?
Because
So I've literally found hundreds of multis. Yeah, but I found 50 in one day or something like that. So that's one square on this tree. But I do like the challenge checker, and I like the part where it says, here, let me give you a helping hand so you're not having to dig through your own logs and try and figure out how to fulfill this challenge, because that's been a real problem, I think, for
really
people
nice.
of having to go, well, how do I tell? Do I have to go through my 5,000 finds and figure it? No. The challenge checker authors have taken it upon themselves to create little grids as often as possible for these.
Very cool.
Nice. Now, I know on some challenge checkers, let's say your difficulty terrain grid, it will tell you which difficulty and terrain combinations you need, but it will also give you a list. Here's all the caches in your state that qualify for that. So
is that part of the challenge checker? I know that that's online. It'll do that. On
right.
geocaching.com, it'll do that.
There are some challenge checkers that do that. I don't know if all of them do, but there are some that will tell you, oh, here's what you're missing, and here's how to go find them. Or, well, here's the ones you need. So
the challenge checkers have access to the entire GC database, with a few exceptions. They don't have access to your location and a few things like that. But yeah, it would technically be possible to do that. I personally haven't seen it, but it's a great idea.
Well, I was gonna say there's some of them. So the fizzy challenge checker. Well, it's not the challenge checker.
Yeah, but it's built in. It's built into the headquarters site.
Project GC, and I'm not sure if that's a paid feature. I think it's a paid feature.
Maybe, I can't remember.
But it will. So for your DT grid and the fizzy and things like that. Well, that is the fizzy. Yeah, here you go. Jeff is from Cache the Line sharing some of this. He's saying some checkers provide detailed results. Others just give you a yes, no for qualification. The best ones provide you those details that you can use to help qualify. Absolutely. And then the other thing is, as I was saying, there's some, it's not the checkers themselves, but there's some functions built into Project GC for some of the more common types of challenges, like size and cache type and things like that, where it'll actually, even as Kevin was saying earlier, it'll plot it on the map for you. You go, like, here's the caches that you need to go find to qualify.
Yeah, you take that list, you put it into Cache Turno, and there's your geocache road trip all planned out for you.
There you go.
And you put that together with Adventure Smart, so you're creating a trip plan and all that sort of thing. Yeah. Hey.
Well played.
Hey, look at this guy. We need to bring him on more often.
Yeah.
But absolutely. And Cache the Line makes a great point. There's lots of different checkers out there. There's lots of different authors out there. The technology is evolving in the background, so it's moving towards better results and better direction as time goes on.
Nice. Now, Wet Coaster says Greenwards and I have signed the log on many challenge caches back east that we didn't qualify for at the time, but we can work towards fulfilling them using finds here.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So.
And I think one of my biggest pet peeves in this whole thing is that there's no way to sort of track which caches you've signed, but you don't qualify for.
Yeah.
You can create a list, obviously, and maintain it that way. But it'd be nice if there was a check bug as you were, doing something like a write note saying found it, but didn't log it because I don't qualify, and a checkbox saying, okay, add this to a list somewhere so I can keep track of which ones. As soon as I qualify, I can log them online. And right now, it's a bit of an accounting function where you kind of have to add it to a list and then go back every once in a while and say, okay, do I qualify for this now?
Right.
I do. Right.
Well, okay. So we've looked at this, and I can see, I've found a few of the challenge caches, and I've qualified for a few others. But you know what? I really want to do my own, and I want to make it hard enough that it just drives people crazy. So, okay, maybe I don't. Yeah, I really do.
Can we boot him now? No, I guess.
No, I like that attitude.
What's involved in placing challenge caches? Now, you've alluded to this earlier. There, it's a little more involved than just placing a traditional.
Yeah, well, the base of it is a traditional. So you have to meet all of the traditional requirements, and then you have to come up with I'll call it a reasonable challenge. It can still drive people crazy, but it's got to be a reasonable challenge. And then you
Oh, that leaves
have
me
to
out. I'm usually not reasonable.
and then you have to reach out to a challenge checker author, and you can do that through the Project GC website. Now, I think I'd put a link in here, which I was hoping that our lackey could help us with, but maybe I can paste it into the chat myself. Can I do that? No, I can't. It's interesting.
Chris will take care of that for you.
Chris
You
take
keep
care of
talking
that.
and Chris will do it.
Okay, so you can go to the Project GC website, and there's a spot there where you can say, I want to create a new challenge. I need a challenge checker for it. You need to include, there you go. Thank you, Chris. You need to include the GC code of your unpublished cache. You need to describe the rules of your challenge. And again, if there's too many rules, it'll just get thrown out right off the bat. Simple and fun. Maybe drive you crazy, but the rules should be simple. 10 webcam caches is simple. It might drive you crazy, but it's simple to describe. And I would say most importantly, if there's a challenge like that already exists, include that GC code.
Oh, nice.
Because the challenge checker author can reuse the code from that other challenge. Okay, so particularly if it's a direct knockoff of another challenge from Australia or someplace, just say, this is exactly the same as GC, whatever, or it's like GC, but I want this one change made. The challenge checker author can then take the code from that and possibly reuse it for your challenge and make the process very short and painless.
Related to this, Keats raises a great question here. I just grabbed this one because I saw it come in. I thought this is perfect timing for what you're talking about, Kev. He's asking if there's a distance rule, and I think he means other than the 162 meter or 500 foot rule for identical qualifications on challenge caches. So could you have 2 challenge caches in a row on a trail that have the same qualifications?
Not on the same trail. And I saw a question earlier that kind of flashed by. I'm not a reviewer. That would be the reviewer's call. It is by region, though. So in British Columbia, I would say, and I'm making a guess here, and unfortunately we have our lackey with us, but it would probably be divided into southern British Columbia, northern British Columbia, Washington State, that sort of thing. You cannot have identical challenges in the same region.
In the same region? Oh, wow.
In the same region.
Interesting. Yeah. I did not know that.
I think we need to throw that over to some reviewers and find out, because interesting.
So there is a rule written there in a set of rules about not having identical challenges, and really it comes down to the reviewers agreeing on what that means specifically. And this happens all the time in the reviewer world, where headquarters will say, okay, you can't have challenges in the same region, and they'll go, well, is that a province? Is that a state? Can we break the state up into regions?
Right.
So the reviewers kind of do it. And, we have some great local reviewers here in British Columbia, and I know a few of them down in Washington State as well. And they knock their heads against this problem all the time. But of course, headquarters has got a whole world to come up with rules for. So
right.
Exactly.
Which is why, as one of my favorite reviewers likes to say, it's a global game played regionally. But Jeff from Cache the Line says, speaking of Ontario, says we have a kind of arbitrary minimum distance between similar challenges. Here we've got as close as 40 to 50 kilometers for parts of Ontario. So there you go.
Sure. And it's going to be a little bit regional, and of course it changes if you're 3 hours ahead. So
there you go. And finding our way says it varies by state. Some as close as 30, some as some are further. 30 miles.
Okay. Some are further.
There you go.
Yeah, and it's going to come down to your local reviewers applying the global rule to the region that you work in. So caching in the Northwest, I know the reviewers are pretty much they've looked at British Columbia in a particular way, and Victoria, of course, is of its own region. And then Washington State, the Washington State reviewers, Barking Frogs, and those guys, they have their own set of rules.
I think in Ontario, isn't 45 kilometers the width of Highway 401 there in the city?
In certain places, yes.
Yeah, it's about that wide from what I've seen. It's huge.
Particularly when it snows.
It's infinitely wide then, yeah.
Well, they play that game, Am I on the Road at All?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they were playing that a lot this week, as I understand.
And I think in Saskatchewan as well, because it's quite often possible to drive whole sections of the number 1 on a farmer's field.
Oh my gosh.
Who would know?
You wouldn't know.
The farmer in spring. Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't seen
When he
I haven't
starts
seen a rest
recovering
stop in
cars.
30 kilometers. So maybe I should try over here just a little bit. But good question.
All right. So you've talked a lot about checkers and where to find them, this and that. Maybe you covered this, but who creates these things? Is there some coding wizard genius that makes all of them, and you have to pay the fare like the ogre under the bridge, or who writes these things?
You know coders,
So-
don't you?
I know coders. I'm a coder. I write challenge checkers. So I'm one of the challenge checker authors. We have a number of people in our community here in British Columbia that writes them, and a shout out to Hugh, who wrote most of them for the new set of challenge caches, Land Monkey, that we did that one cold day. But it's just people, and it's a language called Lua, Lua. Which is quite a popular sort of open source. It's been around forever. The Checker Fairy creates them. Thanks, Gary. That's awesome. As far as paying the toll, there is no toll. And I got to tell you, on the Challenge Checker forum, it's full on nerdville. The Challenge Checker authors sit there going, "Got it. Okay, I get to write it. Cool. I'm gonna write it now." Or, damn, somebody else grabbed it. I mean, darn, somebody else grabbed it.
There you go.
So it's a little bit of a nerd fest to get in there and see who's going to write them. Again, because you can reuse the code, if you request it, most of the time, they can knock it off in a couple of days.
Nice.
When you mentioned the coding language or script language of Lua, Jeff from Cache the Line jumped in with the exact same thought I had. There we go. And he said Lua is the same language that is used for the Where I Go cartridges, which is interesting.
It is.
Good to know.
Mhm. Yeah, there's some interesting code written by a local cacher that does some work on Where I Go caches, and it actually uses the same code as the Where I Go cartridge, and it's all written in Lua.
Interesting.
That is
Very
cool.
cool.
I was going to
Particularly for the
contribute here
R-words.
that I mentioned Highway 401, and helpfully Jeff said that 401 near Toronto goes up to 18 lanes wide, but as Wet Coaster points out, when it snows, it's only 1 lane wide. So,
Sometimes the cars even travel sideways.
yes.
Nicely played, guys. Nicely played. There's our chat group, keeping things real. I love it. So while we're speaking of keeping things real, and you're talking about writing the challenge checkers, sometimes the reality can be a little bit boring when it comes to coding for some people, those who aren't hovering with their fingers over the keyboard waiting for the next challenging checker to write. But maybe you can share some of the let's call them boring details of writing checkers and help us understand a little bit more of what's involved in actually authoring a challenge checker.
And pardon me if I fall asleep during this.
Why would that be different now, Chris?
I'll poke you.
Okay,
So,
okay, I'm awake.
There's
Ow.
2 parts to a challenge checker: what a program or the checker itself, and then there's something called a tag. And the way that you're supposed to write the program is to be able to take parameters. So you can say, okay, what kind of cache are we talking about? What kind of caches are we talking about? So maybe there's a list of different types of caches. There'll be another list that'll be the number of caches that you have to find for each one of those types. And then maybe there's a region. So you have to find those caches in Canada. So you have to write the program to take parameters. And then obviously one of the things you have to take is, who are you checking this for? So am I checking to see if Land Monkey qualifies, or Wits End qualifies, or Cache of the Northwest qualifies? And obviously you have to write the code to loop through that person's finds or attends or webcams, all of the positive logs, and determine whether they pass. And if they don't pass, to give them some assistance, like the good ones that Cash the Line was talking about. The good ones give you some assistance in helping you qualify. So that's the program part. And then there's the tag part. And the tag part says GC, 42A, B, C. And then you would put in there the list of the cache types and the numbers that you want. So 10 traditionals, 5 multis, whatever. And then the country that you want. And obviously the person that you're checking it for. That's what the tag is. And the tag then associates the cache with the program that you've written to do the actual checking. And this is the part that makes it very, very replaceable. So if one cache uses that checker, another cache can use that checker as well with different numbers or different cache types or different countries, different regions. And that's why I was saying when you specify a challenge cache to the challenge checker authors, if there's another challenge that's already out there, put the GC code in. They'll just take that program and write you a tag for it. And sometimes it can take 15 minutes to create the tag. Hopefully everybody's awake, but really it's writing a program. It's writing a program to do the challenge check that'll take parameters, that'll take values in and do the checking. And then that part is reusable infinitely for any challenge that's similar. But yeah, it's total nerd school, that's for sure. I often run checkers with the tag numbers just to get the result. Interesting. Cache the Lines comment. But yeah, so there are 2 different parts to it. Again, most of the time as users, all we see is the checker part, and it goes there and it applies the tag to the program and tells you whether you qualify or you don't, and it gives you an assistance. But really, there are 2 parts in the background, and it makes it very, very reusable. As a challenge checker author, I can actually see how many times the program has been used. So
really,
if I can go in there and see, oh, here's a challenge checker that's being shared by 300 challenges, then you can make some assumptions that people think it's decent and it's being maintained and all that sort of stuff. And then all you do is create the tag against that checker and you're done. And you get credit for writing the whole program too, of course.
Well, of course.
Is there any kind of special qualification or account or setup or something you need to have in order to be an author of a challenge checker?
They have a very brief, I don't know, want to call it a test. And it's not even, you don't even have to write code. You just have to describe how you would solve the problem. And using the language exactly the way that I've used it, would allow you to qualify. Obviously, you need to know Lua or you're not going to be able to do anything. There's 1,000 courses online to learn basic Lua. There's a bunch of instructions on Project GC to apply to their API. But they'll ask a question like, how do you tell if somebody has found 10 traditional caches? And you would say, well, I would request the list of caches that they found. I would specify only give me a list of traditionals to save the database query against all the other cache types. And I would compare it to the number 10. And I would then parameterize that so I could change the cache type and I would change the number of caches to be found, and that would be done. And you'd get A on that, and they would let you write challenge checkers.
Wow.
Simple as that. All you have to do is learn programming and be a total nerd. No.
Oh, well, other than that, we got it made.
It's a piece, I think. No, but if you do know some coding, if that's something that interests you, it's really not a big deal. There's lots of documentation on the Project GC API, and there's also a challenge checker author forum. So, they've asked for something weird. How would you tackle this problem? Mm-hmm. And 99% of the time they say there's already one that does that. Here it is.
Very cool.
You can then go look at the code.
Yeah.
The programmers are great. There we go. I've gotten all my challenge checkers written up within a few days. That's
bike for me there. Yeah.
Bike for me. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
So it's, if you've got the nerd in you and you're interested, I believe there's an address that I put in the notes. I think it's support@projectgc.com. You tell them you want to become a challenge checker. They will give you an email with all of the links to their API, and they will give you the quiz, and off you go. And if you don't know Lua, then there's 1,000 Lua courses out there. You can take any of the standard sort of online education ones. There's a lot of free ones. You can set up the interpreter on your computer, and off you go.
Very cool.
Nice. Now, if someone wanted to know more info on challenge caches or challenge checkers, where would you point them?
I would point them to, again, Chris, I'm going to have to push you into service here. I produced a link, I believe, of the HQ. There we go. Yeah, so everybody just memorize that great link.
That's right. Just read that out loud. You should be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries.
But if you Google challenge caches and you pick one of the links from geocaching.com, chances are it is that link. And let me see. Can I open the link and share it with you? That would be really fun, wouldn't it? Let's try this again because it's confused me 2 or 3 times so far.
It's all very high tech.
Oh, I know. I can write challenge checkers, but try and share a screen. Yeah.
After 2 years of work from home COVID stuff, you should have this whole Zoom thing down pat by now. There you go.
Well, yeah, this isn't quite Zoom. Because you actually have to like push this window away and go back to the window you're sharing. But
Indeed.
there's a section here on challenge caches. It talks and look, there's one in German for those of you who speak
Sprechen Sie
German.
Deutsch? Yeah.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch.
There's
it
a
talks
challenge in
about,
and of itself.
yes, with people yelling at you in a foreign language. Yes. It talks a lot about type, title, and attribute. So these are the things I started off at the beginning. It must be a mystery cache, English word challenge. It must have a challenge checker. It does have to have a final container location. So it's based on a physical cache like a traditional. The criteria must come primarily from geocaching.com. They must qualify. Need to make sure that there's other cachers in your area that qualify. People can sign the log in advance. There's some definite examples here of things that are acceptable and not acceptable. Okay, requiring caches to be found in earlier years, it's not attainable by someone new to the game. Right. So again, it has to be open to everyone. We talked about time limited. We talked about source of criteria. Spend for a long time. You cannot force people to find caches on a specific list. Or all a great percentage of the caches. Let's say 80% of the caches in British Columbia, even if you have, and note they say earth caches. So even if you found 80% of earth caches in BC, you cannot create a challenge like that. The find date. Now this was an interesting Land Monkey. We were talking about this earlier. Restriction on date of finds used for the challenge are not permitted. So we were talking about some of these challenges that had intent, and I don't think that that's legal.
That's a pet peeve of mine, and I'll bring that up. I know we're running long a little bit on the podcast here, but I got to share. That is an absolute. And Kevin and I were talking about this before the podcast. That is one of my absolute pet peeves on pre-moratorium challenge caches that have intent, and so that the whole intent thing is you have to log a write note in on the geocache page to say I intend to work on this challenge, and only the caches you find after you write that log on the account for the challenge. I'm like, are you kidding me? So if you find a challenge that you didn't realize existed, but you've already qualified for it, but now you don't, so like, come on. It seems lame.
Yeah, that would, if they came out with an earth cache one, that would be devastating for you because you would theoretically qualify on day one, but they're saying you can only log caches that are published after you publish your intent. I don't believe that's set under the law right here. You cannot restrict the date for people, and you can do it in the past, and you can't do it in the future. It's just not part of the flavor of the game.
There you go.
Thanks, Chris. I'm done with that now.
While we're segueing into the last couple of things here, I noticed that our queen of geocaching goals has joined us. I see JT Coffee in the chat. So,
hey JT, the queen. There's the queen of challenge caches.
I was gonna say something involving challenge caches and a notebook. I'm just
there you go. Awesome.
All right. Well, as Land Monkey mentioned, we are running a little bit long tonight, but it's all good. We're having fun chatting. if someone wanted to reach out and ask you something, Kev, about this or anything else, where can they reach you to do that after we're done here?
My email address is kevin@geekfrog.ca. It's kind of a play on leapfrog, but with a geek, geekfrog.ca. Or I'm Kev_MacD on geocaching.com. My name is, it's on this side, is right there. And please feel free to send me a note, and I'll try and answer the best I can. And if I need to, I'll pass you off to the reviewer.
Awesome.
Nice. Which you are not the reviewer.
No,
I am not a reviewer. No. So,
guys, before we wrap
But he
up,
plays one on a podcast.
there you go.
Go ahead.
I played one on TV. Yes, that's correct.
There you go. Before we wrap up, we did flag a few questions from the live chat, and I just want to run through them. Some of them we did answer, but I kind of just want to run through them just to make sure that we acknowledge everybody who did ask some good questions in here. A lot of them are from Keats. The first one he had was, are there baseline rules for placing challenge caches? And Kev, you did cover that a couple times in the podcast, particularly early on. So Keats, if you missed that, take 2 ibuprofen and check it in the morning.
Yeah.
All right.
Or send me a note, Keith. Just don't send me any pink rabbits.
There you go. The next one from Keats was, can you give us examples of what challenge caches wouldn't make it past review? And that's what you were just talking about, Kevin, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, if there's an identical one close by, if it's really complicated, if you don't qualify, if there's other people that don't qualify. Obviously, if you can't place their traditional cache, it wouldn't get published either.
There you go. Keats also asks, is there a qualification limit to the challenge?
I'm not sure I understand.
I'm not sure I understand that question either. So maybe Keats can qualify his question in the after show.
I know one of the things that comes up sometimes is that people want to create levels of challenges. And I believe that the rule of thumb is double. So if you want to create like a base challenge and an expert challenge, if it was 10 traditionals, then it would be 20 traditionals for the expert. Double.
There you go.
But no, you can create, theoretically, you can create a challenge cache that says find one traditional.
There you go. CRS 98. I understand the reasoning behind not allowing DNF challenges. This is when you were talking about negative challenges, but just an opinion, I guess, but a valid one. He says, I view them as a positive statistic. He's at 1,065 DNFs and counting.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Well, it is. I think it's awesome. I think we've talked about DNFs last year. We had a show about DNFs, and we'll probably do it again at some point, but
DNFs are vastly important. If you are a cache owner and you have to find out that your cache is not there anymore because nobody's logged it in 3 months, that's terrible. I would much rather get the DNF and then not fix it after that. I mean, fix it after that. No,
there you go. Winos Seattle is back, and Winos asks, I assume a blackout is considered a challenge?
What kind of blackout? Like find all the caches in the area that is not allowed?
Right.
Yeah, no, wouldn't be allowed. Wouldn't be allowed.
Okay.
Well, it's a challenge.
Saying,
it's grandfathered, but you can't place a new one.
There you go.
And I think I covered saying you can't make a challenge that says you must find a significant portion of a cache in a region. You can also cannot create a challenge based on a list of caches.
Excellent. All right. June asks, when logging a challenge cache, do you need to show proof that you qualify, or can you just copy the script from the checker and put that in your log?
You can just copy the script from the checker and put it in the log. I believe there's been an update just recently. I haven't had a chance to explore it, but I believe now when you log it, it's actually running the checker for you in the background, and it's putting a note saying that when you logged it, you qualified. So
Nice.
I haven't had a chance to play around with that, but it becomes part of your log that when you logged it, you qualified. So
nice.
More on that maybe coming up in the future. I just noticed it. I didn't see it in any of the change logs for geocaching.com. My life has been kind of challenged lately, so maybe I just missed it. But I was doing research for this show, and I noticed that a lot of them now, the log will actually say, the geochecker said yes when you logged it. And the one rule that I've heard consistently is if the geochecker says you qualify, you qualify.
Okay. Good. I mean, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, there should be no argument about it, right? So
that's cool. Good stuff. Jeff Cash the Line also shared some great advice. He said, bookmark your favorite useful challenge checkers. If you like the result, it could be more helpful for other similar challenges. And I think that goes along with what you were saying, Kevin, about building a library of challenge checkers and reusing code.
Yeah, I've never heard of users doing it, but that's awesome. If you're looking at putting a challenge out, absolutely keep track of challenges that are similar. It makes it very much easier for the challenge checker author.
Very cool. And before we jump to CRS 98, Keats clarified his question. He said, to clarify my question, can you add multiple requirements to the qualification on your challenge cache?
Sure.
So
if you mean like
cache, but can it have like layered qualifications in it?
Like 10 traditional, 15 multis, 20.
Absolutely. Yeah, it can be a whole matrix. At some point you run into that rule that the reviewers, well, it's actually in the headquarters site as well, but the reviewers are going to say, okay, too many rules.
Okay.
So keep it simple. But yeah, absolutely. You can say must do 5 mystery caches, 4 multis, 3 whatever, 1 traditional. You can certainly do
call
that.
it the RE challenge.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And you can add regions into it, and you can add regions into it. You can, all of that sort of stuff. But again, when you start to come up with 15 rules,
right,
the reviewers are going to go, okay, not simple anymore. Not going to do it.
There you go. Well, thanks, Keats, for clarifying that. And before we start getting ready for FATAS and the after show and all the fun we're going to have there, so stay tuned for that. But a last comment about challenges from CRS 98. And this is nice to end on a positive note like this. He says, I just checked. Someone who claimed to finish my GC2 Romeo
Yankee,
thank you, Charlie 7, while watching the podcast. And he says, congratulations to Spock Prof for fulfilling the Washington State Cities and Towns Challenge. So nice positive note to end it on. Congratulating another cacher.
Live long and prosper.
For living long and prospering. There you go. Awesome. All right.
They really are very simple to run. So
there you go. Chris, over to you, my friend.
Hey, KevMacD, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And listeners, we thank you for joining us. We hope you learned something about challenge caches. Maybe you want to go place one. Maybe you just want to go find them. Either way, thanks for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of Caching in the Northwest. Land Monkey would like to say,
no.
You want to take a moment to thank Land Sharks and Gold Country Geotourism, our corporate Denali level sponsors.
I've got a reputation to maintain here of spacing out and not paying attention to the show. So,
or the script, yeah.
Anyways, yes, absolutely. Thank you. Our corporate Denali level sponsors. Landsharks.ca is the outdoor adventure and geocaching store. Check them out online. Remember, they ship orders online daily. Or they even ship online orders daily. And for absolutely amazing geocaching adventures, check out exploregoldcountry.com. And we want to thank our faithful Denali level supporters. That's Land Sharks, Gold Country Geotourism, also Team Squirrel, Groovy Owl, and Cachly, the geocaching app. And hey, if you want to know more about supporting this podcast, my friends, head on over and click that Patreon link on the cachingNW.com, a website.
Like Peach, actually in Washington.
And the Geo Travelers.
And if you're a spilly drinker, you're going to have a wet coaster.
Somebody who signs a lot of challenge logs, green words.
How about Dora Moore?
How about CRS 98?
Seebeck Tribe.
MC3 Cats.
Our good friend with the numbers, Limax.
And Core's got
Just finding our way.
Get ready for the countdown. It's Lackey Spectacularly. Ari, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I don't know how to follow that. 3 hams in a rows.
Donners.
And you talks 2 rocks.
What about our guest, KevMacD?
What about
He's
him?
here. Hooray!
Name sounds
Down
so
there.
familiar. Yeah. Hey, there he is. Let's continue on with Dick I'm begging it.
And Sege Hove.
Log work.
Gas station tuna.
Active in the chat tonight and hopefully feeling better soon. It's Keats 94.
UDAC.
B Pendragon.
Fairwood West.
Subaway Mark.
Alarobrick.
The Geo Nav Pros.
Winos Seattle.
GSM times 2.
And I noticed we actually need to make an update to this next one because he changed his caching name at the beginning of this year. Formerly, the cacher formerly known as Trexer Zero, now known as Trexer. I'm going to update that for right now.
Okay.
Oh, I like that. What about Genies?
And Kitty Quest.
And our favorite appliance, LG 9000.
T. Sayer.
Boomer 365.
Team Noltex.
Camp Clan.
On a boat.
Kennel Barb.
Hey, how about our glow submitter Sprouter?
Yeah. How about Skyhawker?
And the Broncos fan for life.
Ooh. And Teus.
M Nerve.
Acrodoc.
And my favorite kid, Kid Vegas 19.
I'm going to tell your son that.
Go ahead. He won't believe you.
All right, Kev, thanks once again. And one more last time, where can people get in touch with you to find out more about, they say, hey, that Kev, he's a wild and crazy guy.
You can get hold of me right here on geocaching.com. I'm KevMacD, or my email address, kevin@geekfrog.ca.
Nice. Folks, thanks for taking the time to listen to this episode of Caching in the Northwest. Your support helps keep the quality shows coming. If you like the show, click the Patreon link on the CachingNW.com website. If you didn't like the show, let us know what you want to talk about. In either case, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and more. Subscribe and give us a review, maybe even a thumbs up. But a review is better. Call 253-693-TFTC. I saw that, Land Monkey. And leave us a comment, ask us a question, or help us solve some of these challenges any time of the day or night. And of course, you can email us at feedback@cachingnw.com. Join us every Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific for a live show. And, especially tonight, even livelier chat. The show is produced by Chris Umfenauer, Jim Paulitz, and Jay Kennedy. It's licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license, copyright 2022 by Chris Umfenauer. And folks, I think we're already in
The After Show.
We did it.
I only know of one FATASK. Did I miss some?
I think you did. I think there was more, but we'll start with this one. Keats says, well, you're not going to believe it, but a new episode of Keats 94's Geocaching Adventures goes live tomorrow at 10 a.m. Alberta bound. Sounds a little Gordon Lightfoot-y. He says he's glad to finish this one. It was shot last summer. So there you go.
Nice.
Little flashback action there for Keats. Good stuff, buddy.
When you're stuck at home, you have time to edit the videos.
Yeah, do.
That's right. One from the Camp Clan that says, actually got to an event on Monday. Good to see people in person.
Nice. Very cool. It's too bad there isn't like a search function that we could just search for that hashtag as opposed to the search of scrolling back through the chat.
Scroll. That's why we have you use the hashtag at the beginning of your statement because of your comment, because we can scroll.
Here's
through
one
and
from
see.
Winos. He in the subsequent, he said, Fatas on past comments. So I'm going to go to the previous comment from him. He says, are we ever going to see a challenge cache specific icon rather than continue to use the mystery? And why are challenge caches dropped in the mystery cache icon category? History, please. And I know Cache the Line jumped on that one. And Jeff said mystery caches are kind of catch-all for caches that don't fall into other cache types. So challenge caches fit there. And they are unlikely to get their own icon in the foreseeable future. Is there anything else anybody wanted to add to?
Headquarters has considered it. When they came off the moratorium, they mentioned that they were considering an icon, but they wanted to run for a year. Of course, that's quite a number of years ago now. It just hasn't appeared. So.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, I know the big issue is exporting geocaches into hardware, a GPSR. They're pre-programmed. They're hard encoded in their firmware with only a set number of icons. So if you introduce another icon type, it's going to create problems.
That's one of the challenges, yeah. And there's JT Coffee says there is an attribute, so you can search.
Yeah, absolutely.
HQ did mention it when they came off the moratorium, and there's been no movement on it. They've got bigger fish, I think, to fry.
Exactly. So there you go, folks. Thanks for staying up with us. And until next week, go out, find a challenge in the Northwest.